Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Everyone, this is Sultana Whitfield. I am one of the founding members of Girls Gone Hajj, and we would like to welcome our attendees to our Heart of Hajj series. This is our initial workshop, and so we are super excited that you are all here with us. And so, thank you to the attendees. And thank you, of course, to our guests. We'll get in and we'll introduce him in a moment. But as customary, let's go ahead and open up with dua. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, everyone. Again, my name is Sultana Whitfield. I'm one of the founding members of Girls Gone Hajj, and we'd like to welcome you. We're going to go ahead and get into our presentation, but I'm going to ask that the other founding members go ahead and introduce themselves, and we can go ahead with the program, and maybe we can go in alpha order as far as introduction, inshallah.
A, B, C.
Farida, that would be you.
First name. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Farida Hamid. I'm one of the other founding members of Girls Gone Hajj. And we are welcoming you here. As Sultana said, we will have a wonderful program, inshallah. And I will turn it over to the next founding member.
Assalamu alaikum. Dear believers, this is Hanifa Hamid. I'm one of the founding members of Girls Gone Hajj. We are excited. We are thrilled that you are all in attendance, and we hope that you gain a lot from this program today. Inshallah.
The fourth and final one-fourth of our group, Girls Gone Hajj, and alhamdulillah, we are happy to see all of you joining us today. This is exciting. We're excited to talk about Hajj. We're excited for this program, and we hope that you get something out of it, inshallah, and that you enjoy our guest speaker.
Alhamdulillah. And so do you want to go into the mission or kind of about us of like why we kind of got started?
So initially, yeah, I will. I don't have anything in front of me. I'm sorry. But Girls Gone Hajj was obviously founded by the four of us. We all had the privilege to make Hajj together in 2009. And in 2009, when we came back, we were tasked with the duties of doing something for the next class of Hajjis. And so we sat around and we brainstormed and we came up with our group, Girls Gone Hajj. And our mission is to educate our fellow believers about why we should make Hajj, why it's important to make Hajj. It's specifically, we feel that it's important to do it as soon as possible so that you can fulfill your rights as soon as you possibly can. And that was part of, that was our goal in founding our organization.
Alhamdulillah.
I'll add there that initially some of our wonderful pioneers have put out, well, let's have a fish fry. And we decided on t-shirts. So we started selling Got Hajj t-shirts to raise funds for our incoming class of Hajjis. And so, through that, Girls Gone Hajj, and then subsequently Girls Gone Hajj Apparel was born from those ideas and those brainstorming meetings. So I will go ahead and introduce our esteemed guests, Hajji Khalil Ghani, who we have the fortune and the blessing to be escorted to Hajj with him and his wonderful Al Muadhin Hajj group, which has been in existence for decades. And he has made close to 30 Hajj journeys, and then about over a dozen Umrah journeys. I will tell you that being in the holy city of Mecca and Medina with someone with such a knowledge base was a gift from Allah, and part of why our Hajj was such a rich experience. We also know that there are, he is based in the great city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And so, as the hashtag Philly Muslims is a movement, we want you to enjoy this wonderful brother that we will collectively term his Jersey girls. So we are thrilled to have him here. So without further ado, this is sort of going to be conversational style. We really want to just talk to our esteemed Hajji, and so this is the setup. As Sultana did say, there will be adequate time for questions at the end. You may also type them in the chat. So I think we will move on with our first question. And essentially, that question, Hajji Ghani, is what sparked the desire in you to create a Hajj tour company? You're muted, Hajji.
No. Okay, there we go. As I told you, well, the old folks are, I'm not even make that excuse as far as being technically knowledge. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulullahi wa ala alihi. Actually, I think I'm consider myself one of the founding members also of the Girls Gone Hajj, because all of you went to Hajj with me, and all of this came out of Hajj. So you can count me as a founding member, alhamdulillah. But, as far as what the question was, what inspired me to do the Hajj? My first Hajj was in 1992. It was a gift to myself. I just graduated from University of Penn Wharton Business School, and said, well, as a gift to me for my graduation, I was going to make Hajj. And I did so. And myself and one of the other brothers from the masjid, we kind of got together and said we would travel together. And then after we kind of got everything together, we found out there were like 14 or 15 people from our masjid that were making Hajj. And the Imam, Muhammad Abdul Alim at the masjid, asked me to kind of organize the group, because we were all traveling with the same group out of Atlanta. Brother Yusuf, Allah forgive the sins of Grant of Paradise, and Brother Dewan. We were all traveling with them, so we kind of made the arrangements as far as transportation goes and all. But that was just a small part of it. Again, at this point, we were just thinking about doing Hajj. But once we actually got to Hajj and went through the rites of Hajj, personally, I've just had so much fun and had such a good time that I try to say, well, how can I come back? What can I do to come back and come back on a regular basis? And I asked the brothers who we were traveling with, how can I come to Hajj for free? He said, well, you can't come for free, but what you can do is organize people in your area to come to Hajj, and we'll see what we can do about getting you a package. And that's when it started. So, we'll leave it at there. All of you are muted at this point. Okay, there's Sultana.
Yes. And thank you for that. And I want to go back and just let everyone know, again, this is our first series. And, what we do plan to talk is about, expectations and preparation and even stories. As we go throughout this Hajj, this Heart of Hajj, I'll call it HOH series. And we have, guest speakers. This is the type of events because we know that last year was different. There wasn't a I mean, it was Hajj season, but there wasn't travel to Saudi Arabia. This year is the same. And I think there was a limited amount of spaces only for the local. I believe it's around 60,000. So again, we thought of my Hajjis and we thought about, okay, let's have a series that we can have, through the next, Hajj, but just giving information to people. I know people were intending to go, and so at least we can set up, this type of workshops to get us into that Hajj spirit, inshallah. So I know we have a set of questions, and I think let's see, I can go. So going on to the, we talked about, your why you started this. Like, what has been like your most memorable Hajj moment?
Oh, I don't know if I can. I do know. My most memorable Hajj moment was seeing the Kaaba for the first time. Walking into the Haram, and you've seen pictures of the Kaaba. You pray to the Kaaba 5 times a day at least, and then you walk in, and there it is before you. I mean, I've seen not only myself but others just completely break down at that moment. Just in awe of just the sight of Allah's house at this point. So that's probably my most memorable moment of the Hajj of all the time I've gone.
Yeah, I totally have to agree with you. And I remember thinking that, of course, like you said, that first moment you lay eyes on, it's like, subhanAllah. But then my mind went back to when we were younger and we were, in school, and we made like the Kaaba out of tissue boxes with felt,
right.
The gold, lace around it. That's like kind of my kind of second thought. Like, I remember making this when I was younger in school. So it was definitely a momentous occasion, and still something I can actually just remember, just actually remember my footsteps just going in and just coming, and just like the awe moment of seeing the Kaaba for the first time. So all right.
If I could add there, Sultana, when we first set out to do our tawafs, we said we're just gonna do our tawafs. We went and prepared. Brother Sahir did a class for us, and he said, just do your tawafs. And then Brother Ghani's like, oh, we're right there. Like, go touch it. And we're like, oh no, we're just trying to do the tawaf. He's like, it's right there. So we touched it, and it was a beautiful experience. But I remember being so focused that, there it is, and you're in awe of it, but you're not realizing it's literally right there. So he said, I'm gonna get you in. There's a way you have to maneuver, and the Indonesians have it down pat. If anybody's gone, they are masterful at it. So alhamdulillah for Ghani for getting us like right on top of it.
Hey, yeah, for it to be right there, and you see it, and not be able to touch is like, oh no. I mean, that's over the years, we take the entire group in to touch. They at least get their hands on the Kaaba at least once. May not get to the black stone, but at least they'll touch the Kaaba, inshallah.
Yeah, we did get to do that.
I agree. I remember co-workers saying, don't be a hero. Don't try to touch it. Just do what you got to do so you can get back.
So I'm gonna go on to the next question.
Yeah.
And one of the questions, and I see some questions in the chat, and we're gonna get to those, but one of the questions I had, obviously, we know that Hajj is a big undertaking, right? There's a lot of preparation that you have to do, I want to say, behind the scenes in order to make such a journey. One of those preparations is being financially prepared to undertake such a journey, because it's not an inexpensive trip. So what would you say to Muslims that are considering making Hajj but are financially challenged? I will use that word, financially challenged, or how can they financially prepare themselves to make such a journey?
Well, I'll actually read an ayat of Quran. Surah 3, Ali Imran, verses 96 and 97. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The first house of worship appointed for men was that of Bakah, full of blessings and of guidance for all kinds of beings. In it are signs manifest, for example, the station of Ibrahim. Whoever enters it attains security. Pilgrimage thereto is a duty men owe to Allah. Those who can afford the journey. But if any deny faith, Allah stands not indeed in need of any of his creatures. For us in the US, 9 times out of 10, it's just a matter of choice of how you want to spend your money. As I said, mine was after I graduated from college. University of Penn is not a cheap college to go to, although I had scholarships that pay most of it. But most of us, we've been to the Bahamas, we've been to Cancun, we've been to Caicos, we've been to here, we've been to there, we bought the house. We have all the things that we've done and spending money, and then one day we say, well, I can't afford to go to Hajj. So it's just a matter of choice, how you spend your money. Most Muslims throughout the world will never have the opportunity to go to Hajj. They cannot afford it. Many of them in some of the poor countries will save a lifetime. A family will save a lifetime to send one member of their family to the Hajj. So that one member can go and pray for them. So it's not a matter of choice, it's just a matter of circumstance for them. But for us, mostly it's a matter of choice of how we want to spend the money. And then it's a matter of if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with the money and you choose not to spend it for that cause, then of course, Yom Kippur, you're going to have to answer for that. As we know, Hajj is a duty, as we just read, a duty men owe to Allah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I have a follow-up question to that. So, and we talk about, when we went, it was like, well, you have to have no debt. So, you talked about having a house. Well, suppose someone has a house. Does it reply, or has a mortgage or has other things? Does that mean that you can't go until that's paid off? Or what does that mean when we say you can't go with debt?
Well, that's one of the misconceptions of, I guess it depends on where you get your information. It's virtually impossible to not have some debt, but you shouldn't go if your debt is in arrears. I mean, if you're leaving town, you're going to Hajj, you're 4 months behind in your mortgage, they're getting ready to repossess your car. You haven't paid child support in 3 years, then of course you should not be trying to make the Hajj. But if all your debts are current, or you're currently paying your debts, then you don't have to be debt free in order to go to Hajj.
Thank you. And I think that's a relief to a lot of people because, like I said, when we went, we were like, okay, we have to pay, how are we going to pay off everything? And it's like, okay, be able to pay be current, be able to pay while you're there. And, so that, I think that's a lot of relief. And I think that, I think I see some people say, thank you for asking that question. So, alhamdulillah.
Well, also, along with that, we've got people. Like for the past 2 years, we have not been able to make the Hajj because of COVID, of course. But I've got at least one couple who has been saving. They were ready to go last year, but they had been saving 2 years prior to that to go. So this will be actually from the time they start their first payment, almost 4 years if they, inshallah, are able to go next year. Hajj has gotten up in price to a point, even the cheap packages are rather expensive. You're talking usually $8,000 and up coming out of the U.S. And that's the cheap packages. So no telling what it'll be this coming year, 2022. My package last year was not one of the better ones. It's somewhere in the Toyota stage around the very comfortable mid-range prices. It was at 10.6 last year. So I don't know what it'll be next year or what strictness that'll be. So start a savings plan, just like your college fund, your vacation funds, all the other funds. Start a fund for your Hajj, inshallah.
And also to add there, once you make your intentions, Allah will provide for you.
Absolutely.
I remember,
absolutely.
I had no clue how I was going to pay for it. Saida was like, we should go. Your mother just went. I mean, we have no excuse. And I'm like, I literally was like, good peer pressure, fear of crowds, fear of a lot of stuff. And my mother kept saying, well, when you go to Hajj, you'll meet your fear. You'll meet yourself. And but I came back. I mean, everything was paid for. If I look back, I don't even know, except by the mercy and grace of Allah. Make your intentions, dear believers, and it will happen.
I have to agree with that. Wholeheartedly agree with that. Allah says in the Quran that He will provide for you from places that you never could you don't even know about. There was one sister, same condition, older sister. She was working but not making a whole lot of money. She made her intentions, and a distant relative died that she barely knew, and he left all his money to her, and she used the money to go to Hajj. So yeah, there are countless stories like that. Once you make your Allah, if it's intended for you to go, Allah will provide a way for you to get there. And that's the only. I mean, there are people who are millionaires that I know that have never made Hajj. So it's a matter of if Allah wants you there, He'll get it and make a way for you to get there.
I also
that is so true. And then and we saw even when Allah calls you, when Allah calls you to Hajj, or no, it's the invitation, right? The invitation to Hajj. I mean, I remember when we were at the gate. I mean, we had some situations at the gate as well. But when we finally got at the gate, I remember one sister who was going in. She was not with our group, but she had like crossed off her, like did something with her passport. Like she penciled it out, and they were like, the people at the gate were like, you can't come in. You can't mess with and so we were like, wow. So it's like, that invitation from Allah is like real, So.
I've seen that on many occasions. People get to the gate and can't go.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
So I have another question. We wanted to know, what are some of the Hajj rites? Because what you did impress upon us is that this is not vacation, you know. There are some rites that you must do, and obviously take it all in, enjoy the city and shopping and all that. But there are critical things that must be done, and I wonder if you could elaborate on that, inshallah.
Oh, yeah, the Hajj, well, there's three types of Hajj. The one that we normally do is called the Hajj Tamatu. And that's basically called the enjoyable Hajj. So, you know, it's not a vacation, but as I said earlier, my first Hajj, I had so much fun that I got to come back. The others around me were crying the blues, how difficult it was, how hot it was, how this and that. But it's like, I'm just having to, I almost had to make up stories, just almost, so they think I was having a hard time too. But it's like, the basic rites, usually Hajj Tamatu, you're doing the Ummah before the Hajj. So you come out of, you go into Ihram, the garb before the pilgrimage. You go the rites of Ummah, and they're relatively simple. Basically going around the Kaaba 7 times, and just cut it short between Safa and Marwa 7 times. And once you finish those rites, then you come out of Ihram and you just, there in the city as a resident and you join the city. On the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, now we just entered the 1st of Dhul Hijjah, as of today, inshallah. But on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, we would go back into Ihram with the intentions of making the Hajj. Then we would go to Mina, spend the day in Mina. In Mina, there's not really anything. To make it short, the primary focus of Hajj is to increase your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You'll spend much of your time in dua or in prayer. And the rites are somewhat minimal, so you can increase that time that you're spending with Allah. So when we go back, if we go to Mina, we're in Ihram, that first day on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, not doing much, just preparing for the Hajj itself, the main day of Hajj, which is the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. So in Mina on the 8th, we shorten our salats. The Dhuhr, Asr, and Isha salats are only 2 rakats. And then on the morning of the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, we'll go into Arafat. This is the main day of the Hajj. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Hajj is Arafat. And we spend the day in Arafat basically pleading our case to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this is the day that whatever's on your heart, whatever you want to share with Allah, whatever you want to ask Allah for, this is the day to do it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said that he called the angels down to witness those who come to Hajj, and that he would answer every single dua. Excuse me, bros. Forgive me, I got allergies. But he would answer every single dua. And the angel said, well, you know, there's so-and-so in the crowd, you know what they did, and Allah said, I've forgiven them. How about, you know, that brother, he does this, he does that, and he said, I forgive them all. And the Prophet Islam said, if you leave Arafat and actually believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not forgiven your sins, then you have committed a sin. And believing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not forgive you. So we spend our day, this is one of those days like none other that I've ever witnessed, where everyone there is just begging and pleading and thanking Allah for, one, allowing them to come, and begging for his forgiveness and pleading their case, you know, for paradise, for yourself, your family. Before you go, people will be handing you du'as, asking you to pray for them, pray for their families while you're on Arafat. So we spend in the Arafat, basically the day of Arafat is from Dhuhr prayer until sunset. So in those few hours, we're just pleading our case. Once we leave Arafat at sunset, we'll go to Muzdalifah, which is right outside of, not far from Arafat. Not much there. We'll spend the night there just resting out in the open. After the morning, we'll usually stay. Some people leave after midnight, but most times we'll stay until after Fajr prayer. And from there, we'll go back into Mecca to the Haram. No, we'll stop. Well, you can do it several ways. Some will go into Mecca and do their tawafs. Others will go into Mina and stone the Jamarat, the first Jamarat for the day. And then that's actually the Eid for everyone else. Those are on Hajj putting in the work, but everyone else basically, that's Eid al-Adha, a day of enjoyment and celebration. But those on Hajj are actually putting in the work. After that, the next few days, we're just spending in Mina. You go to stone the three Jamarats, the story of those most know, where when Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam was going to sacrifice his son Ishmael, it was said that he was tempted by the devil on three occasions to disobey Allah. And what he did was throw stones at the devil to chase him away. And we're just emulating that on the once on the 10th, then all three on the 11th, 12th, and some stay till the 13th of Dhul Hijjah. And after that, Hajj is over, alhamdulillah. 5 days for most part. Very few, actually, as far as the rites go, that we'll be doing during the course of those few days. Most of the time should be spent in supplication, reading Quran. But also don't forget the community part of Hajj as well. Some want to be off by themselves, but you're coming together with Muslims from every part of the world. So you should engage them as much as possible. And you'll find yourself, inshallah.
Inshallah. Absolutely. And you're right. At the day of Arafat, the day of standing, is a serious matter. And so it's like, we call this a G4, right? But it's like that day we were like, we got in our corners and we just like, it was between us and Allah, right? Because you don't want to miss that opportunity. I don't care if it's your friend, your Hanifa and Farida are twin sisters, right? Identical twin sisters. It's like they got in their corners, right? So it's like that's between you and Allah, and take that day seriously. Take it seriously, and like you said, believe that Allah is gonna forgive anything that you ask of Allah. If any day, believe that on that day. Okay.
If I could add there, there's this ease you have about things once you've been on Arafat. There's things I prayed for and that have come up, and I'm like, nope, not worried about that. It just is ultimate. You don't worry, because I sometimes I'll look back at the prayers and I'm like, oh no, don't even trip on that. I don't know why you're worried about that. Like, you already prayed for that. So if we could just stress to people that Hajj is Arafat, and that just to see all the believers in this cohesive unit, asking Allah from the small to the, because we used to ask Brother Sahir, what type of things should we be praying for, And I'm like, the Giants and the Super Bowl, and he was like, sister, ask for everything, but ask for protection from the hellfire. And then when you're reading these du'as, I kept saying, I have so many prayers from people, I'm not gonna get to mine. I'm like, God sent me here, and these sisters and brothers who put their prayers in my book. I'm gonna do it. And then I did theirs first, and then I did mine. And you have enough time. So, alhamdulillah for beautifully illustrating exactly what Arafat is and how important it is for us.
See, Arafat is a bonus. Once you go to Mecca and pray in the Haram, the Prophet ﷺ said the prayers there are 100,000 times greater than your prayer anywhere else. 100,000 times greater. And you're praying there 5 times a day. That's 500,000 prayers greater than anywhere else. I'm talking about anywhere else. I mean, what is in the regular masjid is what, 13 times, I think, greater than at home. And multiply that by 500,000. And multiply that by the 5 days or so, you talk about 2.5 million. So it's like, and then you come to Arafat and all your sins are forgiven. So you got to stack up better cats like this, allows forgiving your sins. You know, you sometimes think that how can a person go to hell after that? Like, only way to really go to hell after that is just to walk away from the faith. So it's a favor. Believe me when I tell you, Islam is a favor to the Muslims. Hajj is a favor to a certain group of Muslims. But then, as you all know, you know, you see the best of behavior during Hajj, and you also see the worst of behavior during Hajj as well. So you have to understand that. That was one of the things I learned very quickly. So alhamdulillah.
You were so right. And you do think that everyone there is going to be on their best behavior during that time? That is not. So that was, you're right. That was something that really surprised me as well. I'm like, but we're on Hajj. And it's like, I do want to bring this up. And, you know, and as you know, there are a lot of sisters on this call, and we do need to, you know, Allah is so merciful, you know, that even when we are not able to pray, you know, maybe it's due to our monthlies or what have you, there's still a way, you know, that Allah will satisfy that for us, even if that happens during, let's say, the standing or other rituals. So there are ways that we can actually, you know, make up for that. You know, when we get back home, we can do fasting or things like that. And so, I don't know, Hajji Ghani, can you talk about that? Like, what are some of the ways to, you know, to do that makeup if we're on Hajj?
Yeah, they've gotten to the point now where I've known sisters, there's some type of medication pill or whatever they can take to kind of hold off their monthly for that time period. But irregardless, even if you're on your monthly at that particular time, everyone goes to Arafat. Makes no difference. And as we said, that is the primary day of the Hajj. So, and only right that a sister cannot do is actually go make the tawaf around the Kaaba. She can still do the sa'i between Safa and Marwa, but if she's can't, but inshallah, hopefully during the course of the time while we're there, she would still be able, because most times during the Hajj, we'll leave the U.S. On average, maybe it's 5 or 6, 7 days prior to the Hajj. So we'll have 4 or 5 days in Mecca before Hajj starts. And after Hajj, we'll usually go to Medina for 4 or 5 days. So there should be, you know, plenty of time most times for a sister to kind of, alhamdulillah, we know Allah will bless you. Either way, we know Allah, you're getting the blessings of being there. Alhamdulillah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I had to bring that because I know that was a situation that I was in, right? But alhamdulillah, it was still a blessing. I still got to do, you know, all the rights. So like you said, we're coming in for a few, you know, and so we do have that space and time that, you know, we can get that done. So alhamdulillah. There was one other thing that I think Hanifa was talking about, but it was when she brought up Brother Sahir. So may Allah, be pleased with him. He's in, I believe, in the Philly area right now. But he was like, when he would come up and he would give us instructions. Like he had the Hajj class, and that was so helpful. I think it was like maybe, I don't know, 8 weeks or something. We would come every week, and he would go through the Hajj, and he would have papers for us, and we would go through that, and we knew the prayers. So we were so comfortable with, once we got to Hajj, it wasn't like, oh my God, what do we do? Like we knew what to do. And so I know that you also have classes, and so maybe you want to talk about, what should people expect when they, are taking the classes and going with your group.
Yeah, we do. We'll do a series of classes. First, let me say my first Hajj, there's a brother here, Brother Farouk. He gave us a few classes on Hajj. But during his classes, we didn't go over a single rite. He prepared us for the dark side of Hajj. The bumping, the pushing, all the other stuff. So when I got to Hajj, I wasn't floating on air like everything is all holy. What I did to prepare for Hajj was go out on the court, play basketball. How you get under the hoop and you push it and shove it and you try to struggle. That's what I did to prepare for Hajj. Some years later, after I went back, then okay, it's like, now, we get the right part. But had I not, then I would have been totally out of the truth. Had I gone thinking that, like you were saying, everybody is holy, we're on Hajj, how can you be doing that? You shouldn't be doing, no. But I also came to learn too, that is, they didn't come to Hajj and start this. That is their lifestyle every single day. If you're not competitive, like in the marketplace and what you're doing, you just get lost and you'll go without. So I learned to accept people as they are, for who they are. Some were just crazy, but for us, doing our workshops, we'll start usually a couple of months before Hajj starts. On average, we'll do 6, 7, 8 workshops going over the rites of Hajj, going over the conditions of Hajj, and then we'll culminate that with a mock Umrah, where we'll go to one of the ball fields and actually walk through the Hajj, and we can kind of pinpoint and show people how to do this, how to do that. And even as the sister said, as far as maneuvering to get to the Kaaba, we'll even show them how to do that as well.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, definitely, get into those classes. And we also have to do a shout out to Sister Khalila Hamid. Sister Khalila Hamid, she provided, I don't know, she was so great. She's out of Newark, but she provided all the Hajjis this little book, this little like package that was on a ring that had like all the rituals and the prayers and everything. So it was like a pocket size, and we would just like take it. And so shout out to her. Alhamdulillah, may Allah be pleased with her. So and that was like so helpful. So looking at the time, we're going to open this up to questions. So if people want to come off their mics and if you have a question, please, come off your mic. Or if you just want to put it in the chat, we do have some questions in the chat. But, go ahead and let's do that. Let's open it for Q&A.
Also, while we're waiting on that, I don't know if you can see this book. It's called Getting the Best Out of Hajj. This is one of the best books I've seen. That goes over not only the Hajj rites, but just very comprehensive book on the Hajj.
Okay.
Abu Munir Ismail Davids. A little more expensive than most of them, probably around somewhere around $20, $25. But most basic books on Hajj will give you, there's one book called Hajj from A to Z that we use in the workshops. But get a book, familiarize yourself, and deal with a reputable company. That was one of the main things. Because once you get there, there's usually your group leaders will actually lead you through the Hajj itself. So, if you come up short, I mean, I've had people sign up for Hajj almost days before we departed, so they had no opportunity to go to any of the workshops. But at the same time, they were able to complete all the rites and do them right. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. So if anyone has a question, you can come off your mic, you can raise your hand, you can drop it in the chat. I do see some in the chat. So I'll start to read some of those off. Let's see. Can we speak about, so this is here. Can we speak about the preparation mentally, physically, and spiritually?
Physically and spiritually. Well, physically, probably the absolute best thing you can do physically is just walk. Be prepared to be able to walk anywhere from 2 to 5 miles comfortably. As we know, this time of year for Hajj, that's my, like I said, my first Hajj was in 1992. So during the course of the years, I've been to Hajj in every season. On average, during the summer months, you know, the temperature is usually somewhere around 110 degrees, 112 degrees. At night, it'll cool down to maybe 90, 95. So be able to walk at least 2 to 5 miles. Things have gotten easier because now we're using the trains a lot more. For the last 6-7 years, the trains were just doing the Hajj route from Mina to Muzdalifah to Arafat back to Mina. But now they actually go between Jeddah and Mecca, Medina. So we've been using those as well. So things have gotten a lot easier. But during the course, you never know. You're still going to have to walk, bottom line. Spiritually, the things that you do on a normal basis, your du'as, learn some of the du'as for Hajj. But I find personally the best du'as is the one that's in your own heart. Yeah, you know what you need more than any book that you're going to read. So, you know, go with an open heart. You know, it got to the point of all of those little idiosyncrasies that you used to have, you know, like, you know, seeing a brother cry and those kind of things where the brothers you don't want to see. Forget all that. You know, forget all that. You know, you are there for one reason, and one reason only is to save yourself from the hellfire. That is your main reason to be there. So, when especially maybe 2 hours or so before sunset on Arafat, most of the people are coming outside of the tents. They're out in the open air, and all they're doing is begging Allah. You know, some of the imams will be leading, but people are just out there begging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. Beautiful sight. So, you know, keep your du'as up, keep your prayers up. You can read some of the books, but, you know, just go with an open heart, bottom line. And know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually is hearing you. I mean, he called you there for a reason. You know, that's the Sultana said, you get there by invitation. That's the only way to get there. I don't care how much money you got. I don't care who you know. It's by invitation only. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has invited you. So go and get the best and find out why he brought you there. As we see the results, you know, girls going Hajj. You know, this is some of the results of Hajj. I've known people to write books when they come back to Hajj. I've known people to start businesses because they go there making their du'as for Hajj. Go, I'm telling you, just go and just whatever it is that you want, whatever you need, just ask for it, inshallah.
Brother Ghani, if I could just add to that, also us being African American Muslims, sometimes we just have some trouble following directions and listening to those in charge of the Hajj group. And so there was a lot of times where, you know, the Jersey girls, we were in formation. Like Ghani say, be on the bus, it's 5 o'clock, we're there. And then, you know, we saw others like, well, why is it 5? What happened to dinner? And it's like the brother's been there 20 something. Listen, fall in line. So I think we have to go with the knowledge that the person, inshallah, that's leading you there has the expertise, and that, you know, obviously, you know, we don't want to question, we can question things, but I think a lot of people in our group had some issues because they just were like, you know, he kept saying, "You're not in Philly." You're struggling because you think you're still in Philly, in West Philly. You're in Allah's house.
Hey.
So,
I know there was one day we were on the bus. I don't know, Sultan, if you remember this. I got to fussing about something. I can't even remember what it was. And I came back and said, Sultan, I told you, I apologize, you know, if I was acting too rough. And Sultan told me, "No, brother, guy, don't worry about it. I wasn't listening to you anyway." Say that fucker out.
I didn't take it like that. When you were like, let's just, I didn't mean it like, no. Okay. Anyway, that was like 11 years ago, y'all.
Hey, but I was like, nah, that was fun though. But
it was fun.
Like I say, some folks, they're just a change in their personality once they get there. Just in all of everything that goes on, they just can't process what they're doing. And once we kind of leave the struggle of the Hajj and kind of get back to some normalcy, then they kind of come back to themselves. But so we've gotten to the point where we can even tolerate those folks and kind of be patient with them. But, you know, it's an experience like none other.
Yeah. So thank you for that. So Kalina asks, Assalamu alaikum, what is meant of Hajj versus Umrah? My consideration, affordability, the size of the crowds for disabled folks with anxiety, for individuals who have mobility issues for whatever reason. So I think based on those criteria, like what's the merit, of Hajj versus Umrah?
Well, Umrah is going to Mecca to perform the rites any time of the year for most part. But during the Umrah, you don't go to Arafat, you don't go to Muzdalifah, you don't go to Mina. Everything is right there in Mecca. The rites of Umrah, you know, for Hajj, you know, there's specific times of the year. As we said earlier, you know, we're in the first of Dhul Hijjah. The Hajj takes place from the 8th of Dhul Hijjah to the 13th of Dhul Hijjah. So that's the only time of the year. You know, if in years going past, in the early years, say if a person was leaving like Africa, they might leave a year or two before Hajj starts because they were walking all the way. And they might get to Hajj a week or days after Hajj is over. They're not going back home. They're just going to stay in Mecca until the next Hajj, because it would take them a year to get back home and then, or months to get back home. And then, so those are the main things with the difference between the two. One you can do any time of the year. A Hajj is only one time of the year that you can actually make. And the reward is somewhat different as well. So those are the main differences. Again, for our disabilities, each person kind of knows what they can and they cannot do. As we said, things are easier now. I remember some years ago, I was making tawafs around the Kaaba. You know, there's tawafs for Umrah, tawafs for Hajj, and then there's times where you can just make tawafs because you just want to and get the reward for those. So it was in the heat of the day, I'm making tawafs. It must have been 110, 115 degrees. I've made 2 or 3 around the Kaaba, and I'm saying, well, I'm too hot, I can't do it anymore, and I'm trying to get out of the crowd. And as I'm walking through the crowd trying to get out, a guy comes by me with no legs on his stumps, and he's making tawafs around the Kaaba. You know, I felt this big. It's like, oh, I think I can go ahead and finish making these tawafs. When I saw, man, the Prophet ﷺ said, if you think you bad, look at somebody worse than you. And there's so many of, that, we're living in luxury hotels and you look out the window and you see whole families sleeping on the street. And they seem to be having a better time than ones in these luxury hotels because they're there. Allah has blessed them to get there. So again, as far as disabilities, it's easier now with people with disabilities than it was. But in the case, if you just cannot make it, then you can actually have someone, you can deputize someone to make the Hajj for you, bottom line, and then just pay the expenses for them. And we offer that service as well.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, Hajja.
Hajj brother. I actually was feeling nostalgic about Hajj, and I always reach out to my Hajj sisters. Today I reached out and she told me about this group that was happening today. I didn't know about it, but it's so refreshing just to hear some of the memories and some of the reflections of those who are planning to make Hajj. And I think that the biggest thing I would say, and I don't know that much, I'm into Hajj, but it's like you said, to make your intentions. Because the fact that like Mecca has been closed down for 2 years because of COVID is an example of how precious this journey is. So as soon as you can make your intentions, I would say make your intentions. And like people said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will handle the rest. You make your intentions, you have no idea how you're going to pay for it, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will handle the rest. I think that's the whole gist of the conversation. But thank you so much for holding this forum. For the organizers, I would like to learn more about it. I'm going to check out your website. To my Hajj brother Ghani, it's always refreshing to hear your reflections.
You as well, sis. That's a question often asked. In fact, the sister texted me this morning asking, should she make Umrah or Hajj first? The Prophet ﷺ said, make Hajj as soon as you can. None of us know what tomorrow will bring. I mean, COVID, if nothing else, should have taught you that. But we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. So as soon as you possibly can, and then inshallah, make the Hajj. If you have the luxury, as far as expenses, I've known some who kind of go for Umrah just to kind of get acclimated to the environment, then go back for Hajj. But most can't afford that. But again, we don't know if Allah will grant us enough time to do that as well. So, inshallah.
Inshallah. I know we're coming up on time. I think we have one or two more questions that I'll go through in the comments. From Sister Manaima, she said, Brother Khalil, as a guide, do you get to perform the Hajj rites, or do you have to completely concentrate on the people you're instructing?
No, I go through the rites with everyone, step by step, inshallah. At 73, I don't know how many more I got left. So I figure by the time I'm 90, I got to give it up. So inshallah. I will be there, inshallah, step by step through the entire process, not only prior to, but during the course of the trip as well, inshallah.
Inshallah. And then someone had a question about deposits. And I see Sister Zakia had answered the questions. And so, yes, Sister Zakia, if you want to jump on and just kind of talk about that. So the questions, are you still taking applications and deposits? So to contact them, go to www.makehajj.com. That's Al-Muhadzin's website. So go there, take a look at that. Yes, thank you. And I don't know, Brother Ghani or Sister Zakia, do you want to talk any more about that? So someone had a question about application and deposits.
Yeah, we are taking applications and deposits. And I pretty much know for if it opens up next year, one, we won't know if there's any type of quota as far as fewer than the norm. Normally out of the US, they allow about 20,000 people total. One thing I pretty much can say for sure that it will sell out before it's really advertised. I can say we've got people who signed up for 2020 who carried their money over for 2021. They're not able to go this year, so they've carried over 2022. So I would say, yeah, almost half of my package is already sold out for next year. And most of the Hajj companies they do pre-registration. They are sold out before the Hajj season even comes around. So if you want to, especially if you plan on making it in 2022 or in the future, you can go to the website, makehajj.com, fill out an application, and send us a deposit, inshallah. We'll put you on the rolls, inshallah. And once we actually, at this point, again, we don't know what the cost of the package is going to be for next year because we don't know what they're going to allow. Even this year, initially, they were going to be 500 people total that they were allowing out of the U.S., which is next to nothing. But you'd have to be, one thing, you're going to have to be tested for COVID. 2, you're going to have the vaccination for definitely. 3, they were going to quarantine us if we came in and then be tested again while we were there and then be restricted in your hotels while you're there. So that was, you still would have been making Hajj, but you wouldn't have had the full Hajj experience if you went this year anyway. So.
SubhanAllah. Yes, Saida had that question about COVID vaccine, and that's a good question. I remember the year that we went was 2009. There was the SARS outbreak, and so we had to do the SARS vaccine. And when we came through the airport, there was like these infrared scanners that we had to go through. So I'm sure that there's like going to be some precautions definitely going through. Well, alhamdulillah. Anything else on my Hajjs? I'm going to...
Yes. I wanted to thank everyone for being here. We need to give a shout out to Study Al-Islam, which is run by Sister Fitra Muhammad, Auntie Fitra as we know her. This is a weekly program on Sunday. There's a call-in number. You can go to www.studyalislam.com. They are currently going through the miraculous nature of the Quran through the tafsir of Imam Wahiduddin Muhammad, Rahimahullah. And so we want to give a shout out to her as she advertised our program today.
Yeah, she has an excellent program herself.
And I wanted to just say, just a reflection on reflecting back to our journey. The invitation is real. I was literally on a plane flying 10 hours back from Hawaii when I decided that I wanted to make Hajj, and I called the twins and was like, I'm making Hajj next year. We didn't know how we were going to do it, but I said, I'm doing it, and we did it. You know, alhamdulillah, Allah made it easy, so easy for us. And when I think about our journey, even to this day, 11 years later, whenever I'm faced with difficulty or there's something that is difficult, I remember on our journey, whenever we were facing difficulty and when we made dua and when we prayed and asked Allah to make it easy for us for whatever step of the journey that we were in, it happened. And whenever I am faced today with hardships or something comes up, I always reflect back to that time on Hajj. If one of the things Brother Ghani said to us, and this will always stick with me, if you don't come back from Hajj a different person, then you missed it, right? You should come back different than as a different person than the person that you went there. And I definitely can agree with that trip changed, that journey changed, forever changed my life. And I'm so grateful that I was able to do it when I was able to do it. I'm grateful that I was able to do it with sisters that I grew up with, that we were all able to do it together. And that's why even just creating our group, it was so important to us that we kept this connection all of this time, and the fire for us to continue to do what we're doing never let up. And so, you know, I thank each and every one of you for attending. This is going to be one in a series of events about the heart of Hajj, and continuing to educate people on the importance of this journey as soon as you possibly can.
Thank you. And as Saida said, we're planning to do this series. We're thinking that we're going to do it every other month. And so we've secured some people. But the information will come out, but but we do want to have experts in this field to come and talk to everyone. So let everyone know about it. You can also go to our in contact with us. We have a Linktree, and then so you can go over the website, but I'm going to drop in our Linktree in the chat so you can stay in contact with us there. Has all of our social pages, our website, and decide if you want to go through the apparel site.
Oh, so again, when we initially started Girls Gone Hajj, we started with T-shirts as a fundraiser, and we brought back those T-shirts now, and we did a special T-shirt for today, the Heart of Hajj. That T-shirt is up on our website now, and we have a special code for everyone that attended today's workshop to get 10% off. I'm going to drop that code in the chat, and it will be there. So if you want to go visit our site today and get the T-shirt Heart of Hajj, I'm going to show you what it looks like. We have it in black and white. It's just a shirt that says the Heart of Hajj. Yeah, this is on our site today, and we did this especially for our workshop series.
That's great.
And Brother Ghani is the truth, just so you know. If you get an opportunity to make Hajj with Brother Ghani, like, count yourself blessed. That was the best.
Yeah, we become family. I'm telling you, it's just not. We become. Start off as strangers, but we become family shortly thereafter. So, and that's the way it should be. I went to a Walima last night, and I saw so many of my Hajj brothers and sisters there. It just felt so good. And they said, Brother Ghani, I was just thinking about you. We were just talking about Hajj. It's like, at this point, I was somewhere in the area, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people we've traveled with. My goal was 70,000 like Mansa Musa. I don't know if I hit that number, but inshallah, we got a big family. Alhamdulillah.
If I could just also give salam to your beautiful wife who got us through a very challenging part when we went to the Router.
Yes.
We didn't know how fanatical people got when they're in that in the precinct, and there was a point where we were just praying and doing our du'as, and Sister Sakina she's on post, so she looks up and they're just like scores of people going towards us, and we were like making our dua. She's like, up, get up, so we get on our feet, or we would have been trapped. We get on our feet, we get to the part where the keepers, they keep us, let people in at a time, and then people get so fanatical and they want to get in, and they were pushing, and one of my uncle Akil told me, you're from Newark, you going with Brother Ghani, he's from Philly, you guys are gonna be fine. So there's a point where they're just pushing, and I remember seeing the fear on one of our Hajj's faces, Minyewe, and once I saw her fear, I stood up, and we all stood up and was like, you sit down, we just took over because they were being so fanatical, and we were like, we're all gonna get in. Sister Sakina kept saying, you're gonna get in, but there was a language barrier, and so we just stood up, locked on. We're like, sit down, and they're like, Amrika, they knew, and it was so. I think Obama had just President Obama, so they kept saying Obama, but we literally, and then she knew for us to make our prayers, we had to lock arms. One of us went in the circle, we made our prayer. Then, she was masterful. So we always keep her in our prayers, because that Philly came out, and she was like, let's go.
Yeah, she's got to be quite a general as well. And the sister, I'm telling you, the sister's side is much rougher than the brothers. Brothers don't have to go through all that.
It was crazy. Yeah.
She forgot. We actually, the North Brick City came out. We actually said, yo, sit down. That's what we said.
Sometimes you just have to take charge. And a lot of this, all you got to do, many of them, they're so used to being told what to do, that if you just take charge, they'll follow instructions.
Yeah, even the keepers, the sisters, they were like impressed with us. They were like, wow, yeah. Alhamdulillah. So, as Saida said, take a look at our website. We dropped the link in there, girlsgonehajj.com. There is a discount code, HOH10, for a discount. So please, take a look at our site. Keep in contact with us on our Linktree. We also have our Facebook and Instagram. And so the next series will have a flyer out and any other additional information. But Hajji Ghani, alhamdulillah, thank you. This was informative. We are so thrilled that you were part of our kickoff, our initial Heart of Hajj series. Alhamdulillah, you have blessed us. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you to our attendees. The questions and just you being there. Alhamdulillah. Thank you to my Hajjas. Alhamdulillah. And of course, thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thank you. Alhamdulillah. So let's close out, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal asr. Inna insana lafi khusr. إلا الذين آمنوا وآمنوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you.
لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك.
That was beautiful.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Ghani, we'll send you a shirt.